Kingdom of Heaven arrived in theaters with grand ambitions, a sweeping epic about faith, war, and honor during the Crusades. But what audiences saw wasn't the film Ridley Scott intended to make. Studio interference carved out nearly an hour of footage, leaving character arcs incomplete and emotional moments hollow. What remained felt rushed, fragmented, and far from the director's original vision. Years later, when Scott's full version was finally released, everything changed. The director's cut revealed a completely different film, one that transformed a misunderstood failure into a cinematic masterpiece. Today, we're storming the gates to uncover the truth behind Kingdom of Heaven. What really happened behind the walls of this cinematic Jerusalem, and why did it take years for audiences to finally see the real story? First, the director's cut was dramatically longer. When the film hit theaters in 2005, viewers were presented with a 144-minute version that felt incomplete. Characters appeared and disappeared without proper development. Political intrigue lacked depth, and emotional beats failed to land. Critics responded harshly, and the box office reflected their disappointment. But Scott had a different version waiting in the shadows. His preferred cut ran approximately 194 minutes, nearly an hour longer than what the studio released. That missing footage wasn't filler. It contained essential scenes that gave depth to Balian's internal journey, highlighted King Baldwin's political brilliance, and restored the moral complexity that made the story meaningful. When this version finally reached audiences on home video, the film's reputation changed almost overnight. What was once dismissed as a hollow spectacle became recognized as one of the finest historical epics ever made, a powerful reminder that studio interference can bury a masterpiece. Second, King Baldwin wasn't just a character, he was a real historical figure. Baldwin IV became King of Jerusalem at just 13 years old, already suffering from leprosy. While such a condition would have broken most leaders, Baldwin defied expectations. He became a brilliant strategist, maintaining a fragile peace between conflicting faiths, even as his health deteriorated. Edward Norton delivered a haunting performance, capturing Baldwin's quiet strength and tragic nobility. Scott worked closely with historians to ensure the portrayal honored the real king's legacy. Despite constant pain and political pressure, Baldwin held his kingdom together through sheer determination. The film softens some realities, but it preserves the essence of a young ruler who refused to let illness define his reign. Third, Orlando Bloom almost didn't take the role of Balian. Fresh off his success in The Lord of the Rings, he was exhausted and hesitant to jump into another demanding epic, especially as the lead this time. When Scott first offered him the role, Bloom declined. Then he declined again. But Scott persisted, reaching out multiple times, not to sell the spectacle, but the emotional depth of the story. He described Balian as a broken man searching for purpose, a character defined by sacrifice, doubt, and moral courage. Eventually, Bloom was convinced. The role required months of intense training and physically demanding shoots in harsh desert conditions, but the risk paid off. Even critics of the theatrical cut acknowledged Bloom's layered and understated performance. Fourth, the film's battle scenes gained authenticity from an unusual decision. Many of the extras were real medieval reenactors. Instead of relying solely on trained actors, Scott filled his armies with historical enthusiasts and skilled fighters who owned authentic armor and had spent years studying medieval combat. These weren't just background performers. Many understood real battle formations and could handle weapons with genuine skill. Their presence brought a level of realism that CGI simply couldn't replicate. The weight of movement, the clash of steel, and the chaos of combat all felt grounded in reality. This allowed Scott to stage larger, more organic battle sequences that moved beyond typical Hollywood choreography. Fifth, the film takes liberties with history, particularly with the character of Balian. In reality, Balian of Ibelin was born into nobility, a seasoned diplomat and military leader who inherited his position. He was never a blacksmith. Scott deliberately changed this detail to make the character more relatable. By transforming Balian into a broken craftsman thrust into extraordinary circumstances, the story gains emotional depth. It becomes a tale of earned nobility rather than inherited privilege. While this change upset some historians, it allowed the film to explore themes of class, faith, and identity. Importantly, the film still respects major historical events, including the Siege of Jerusalem and the portrayal of Saladin, maintaining a balance between storytelling and accuracy. Sixth, Morocco became the backdrop for medieval Jerusalem. The production team transformed vast desert landscapes into a fully realized ancient city, complete with fortified walls, bustling markets, and towering battlements. The scale of the set was extraordinary, an entire functioning city built from the ground up. It was so detailed and authentic that it remained standing for years after filming ended. The location wasn't chosen just for budget reasons. Morocco's environment closely matched the historical setting, providing the right light, terrain, and atmosphere. Scott wanted authenticity in every detail, and Morocco delivered a Jerusalem that felt alive. The battle between Scott and the studio was intense. Executives feared that a nearly 3-hour film would limit screenings and reduce profits. They demanded cuts, then demanded more. Character development was stripped away, political nuance was lost, and the story was simplified into something far less compelling. Scott fought to preserve his vision, but the studio had final control. Years later, he openly expressed frustration, stating that the cuts removed the emotional core of the film. The conflict between artistic vision and corporate priorities became as dramatic as anything depicted on screen. Edward Norton made an unusual choice. He refused on-screen credit for his role as King Baldwin. He wanted complete anonymity, believing that attaching his name would break the illusion of the character. Norton wanted audiences to see Baldwin, not a famous actor behind a mask. This decision challenged Hollywood's reliance on star power and ultimately enhanced the performance. Without the distraction of celebrity, viewers focused entirely on Baldwin's presence, voice, and quiet authority. Sibila's character suffered heavily in the theatrical cut. In Scott's full version, she is a deeply complex figure, a grieving mother and conflicted leader whose emotional losses shape her decisions. The shortened version removed most of her emotional arc, leaving her character feeling distant and cold. Actress Eva Green later expressed disappointment over these cuts. When the full version was released, Sibila's story regained its emotional weight, transforming her into one of the film's most compelling characters. The final siege sequence was a massive undertaking. Filming lasted 11 weeks and involved thousands of extras, real pyrotechnics, and functional siege engines launching flaming projectiles. The scale and complexity pushed the production to its limits. The conditions were brutal, but the result was a battle scene that felt raw, chaotic, and authentic. The harsh environment also took a toll on the cast and crew. Extreme heat, contaminated water, and constant exposure to smoke caused widespread illness. Even major actors fell sick during filming. Despite these challenges, the team pushed forward, and that physical strain translated directly onto the screen, adding realism to every scene. Authenticity extended to the animals as well. Horses were specially trained to handle chaotic battle conditions, including fire and heavy armor. Their behavior added a powerful sense of realism to cavalry scenes. Similarly, weapons were forged from real steel rather than lightweight props, forcing actors to adapt to their true weight and movement. The production also faced unexpected real-world challenges. Filming was temporarily halted due to a nearby riot, and desert storms frequently disrupted shooting. Instead of stopping, Scott often incorporated these natural elements into the film, capturing genuine chaos on camera. Even the film's music was affected by studio interference. Composer Harry Gregson Williams originally created a haunting, somber score, but executives pushed for a more conventional sound. The director's cut later restored the original tone, aligning the music with the film's deeper themes. In the end, Kingdom of Heaven stands as a powerful example of how creative vision can be compromised and later redeemed. What began as a critical and commercial disappointment was eventually recognized as a masterpiece once the full story was revealed. Scott's persistence ensured that his vision would not be lost forever. The journey of this film mirrors its own themes: struggle, sacrifice, and the search for truth in a complex world, and in the end, it proves that sometimes the real story takes time to be told.